Last year, former President Barack Obama acknowledged the problems he had with Bernie Sanders' vision for the country, reportedly saying he would speak up if he thought Sanders was going to get the nomination.
But Obamaworld has not really done much to slow Bernie's momentum just yet. Hanna Trudo at the Daily Beast noted that the most striking aspect of Obamaworld's response to Sanders is the lack of a cohesive one. So Hanna joins us now to expand on this. Hanna, it's great to see you.
Great to see you too.
So tell us a little bit about this. We've done some of our own exposés here of Obama and Obamaworld, really having it out for Bernie Sanders and his campaign. What are they thinking inside that campaign? You say they don't have a cohesive response, but they have a general. Do they have a general sense they do want to try and stop him if he were to try and win the nomination?
I think that's yes. I think that's fairly obvious that they are not. There's no necessarily no love lost between the two of them. But it's interesting because, Obamaworld has kind of scattered to different campaigns this cycle and, hasn't landed on Bernie Sanders' campaign, to put it frankly. But because there's such a sort of factioned former staffers and Obama himself failing to endorse anybody in particular, there hasn't been a lack of strategy. And so there's sort of disagreement among the people that I've interviewed for that story that there is no strategy on here's what we should do to make sure that he doesn't sort of capture the crown, so to speak. And, I think if Obama had endorsed Joe Biden early on, if he has an endorsement in the works, like a surprise endorsement, that could have made a difference.
Absolutely.
But it's clearly not the case, at least right now. It doesn't seem to be the case that it's moving forward. But, he has a lot of his top lieutenants are working for more centrist-leaning campaigns. Pete Buttigieg has a lot of Obama talent on it. And so there's sort of this disdain for the Sanders momentum that's been catching on, and the more that it catches on, I think the more frustrated that some of these former Obama officials are that they haven't kind of come together and said, okay, this is our plan of attack to stop him from potentially winning.
Yeah, well, you see these op-eds starting to come out. They're like, he hasn't faced any scrutiny. I mean, he's been in this town for a long time. He's like consistently, challenged, let's say, by the media. So I think that's a little absurd, but I think it goes to that searching around for a strategy to argue he's unelectable when the American people really get to know who he is. He's going to be totally unacceptable to them. But so far, that just hasn't really resonated with people.
It hasn't because, he ran last time. He has run a presidential election. Right. Yeah. So it's kind of a weird, I've always thought that was sort of a weird argument to make because it would be different if he were a first-time presidential contender. You can argue maybe Pete Buttigieg hasn't been scrutinized or whatever. People that are running,
I would argue that
nationally for the first time. But Bernie, he faced a lot of scrutiny in the last election. Who's challenging the biggest presence in Democratic politics. So I don't know if that's gonna cut it this time around. I will put an asterisk in that to say that his rival Democrats in 2020 are now ramping up their own sort of oppo on him and trying to throw everything in the kitchen sink at him for the first time.
What does that look like? What does Bernie oppo look like? Because from my perspective, as far as I know, from the Republican side, it's like, well, he said a lot of weird stuff before like 1990. Weird is complimentary to some of these things.
Yeah.
But from the Democratic side, what are they going to do? Because they're not going to play in the mud that way.
No, it's hard to see what's going to actually stick, but I do think using the one thing I hear more times than not, and it's not necessarily oppo, but it's just a critique that I hear in conversations with people, is Bernie is not a Democrat. Obviously, everyone says that.
Why would that land with voters? They don't care about that.
Well,
they're not partisan.
I can tell you from firsthand experience, I've never heard a voter once say that. And I'm from New Hampshire.
Yes.
I've talked to a lot of people over the past year and a half. I've never personally heard that, and I will push back when people say that to me on the phone. But it is something that
it's like that only matters
it comes out all the time. It comes out all the time.
I actually, on the contrary, Bernie is outpolling Biden with independents.
Yes.
And that's why, because most Americans have no love for the Democratic Party. So the fact that he's not a Democrat, not a Democrat is, in my view, an affirmative benefit in the eyes of the voters. We're coming down to it here. Iowa is, 18 days away now? It's not far away.
Yeah.
And, shortly.
Yeah, my math is as good as Elizabeth Warren's apparently. So Iowa's coming up. We have this impeachment trial starting in the Senate. Media coverage is going to be wall to wall. right? So it's going to be very hard for them at this point to have any sort of argument break through. We had the last debate already this week.
Yeah.
Any argument that that Obamaworld would level against him, it's going to be pretty hard at this point to break through.
I think so. I mean, it's the states, the first 2 states are grassroots states, retail politics states. So I think some random attack from Obamaworld is not going to matter as much. I mean, being from New Hampshire, I've seen this on the ground. It doesn't resonate with people the way that like some type of long-standing coordinated strategy if they had launched it 9 months ago, that would be a different story. But these are states where
Jim
he has
Messina
momentum.
gives a quote to the New York Times or whatever. This isn't landing with New Hampshire
Not everyone
voters.
reads the Times. You know what I mean? Like that's the thing.
It's like a Morning Joe segment.
That's right. Okay. And not everybody reads or watches that. Reads the Times or watches Morning Joe. So it's like, I mean, we in New Hampshire, people have seen him come up. He won the state in a landslide last time. He basically tied Iowa last time. People know him. I think the rest of the map gets a little bit trickier depending on how things go.
Certainly.
But I don't know if these attacks at the last minute are going to stick.
It'll be interesting.
Thank you, Hanna. Thanks, Hanna.
Great to have you. Thank you.
We'll have more Rising for you right after this.